Hello, photo students. This is Fitch Horn. This is Period 2 Photography, and we are going to learn alternative ways to edit our color photos to black and white in Photopea, which is our Photoshop alternative. Now, remember the tutorial we watched on YouTube where Sean Tucker said that taking the photos in color is probably your best bet because you have more digital information to work with. So I'm going to open from my computer a photo that I downloaded that has lots of good color in it. It's going to be really fun to play around with in Photopea. Excuse the delay and the spinning wheel of death on my Mac. All right, so it was a download. I don't know how I even teach sometimes. All right, it's in download, and sorry, you guys, my computer's just so ancient that it keeps having the spinning wheel of death. And somewhere, there she is, the little hula girl. I see her right there, and I'm gonna open up Hula Girl. And as the photo's loading, let's go ahead and again, always take a look at your dashboard so you can familiarize yourself that each one of these has a drop down that has a lot of different functions underneath it. Our toolbar, which is slightly outside the recording area. Let me see if I can pull it over a little bit. There we go, so we get our full experience. And here's our layers. So we're pretty much ready to rock and roll. The first thing I want to remind you is that if you want to put a filter directly on the photo, you go to image adjustments, and there we can go ahead and find our curves. We'll start there, and our saturation where we could desaturate. But remember I told you that I kind of prefer having the layers instead, and how you do the adjustments to the images but create it as a layer like over the photo and not on the photo directly is come over to your panel, your layers panel, and let's take a field trip down to the bottom tool. Boom, right here where my mouse is circling like a shark. This is your adjustment layer where you put those same filters on, but now we're going to make them as a layer that we can turn off and on and see the difference. So I'm going to click on that. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is it should pop up if it likes me. It's supposed to pop up all those little options. Give me a second. Da-da-da, there it is. It was just a little slow. Let's go ahead first of all. Remember I told you yesterday and in the last YouTube video to just convert to black and white? Well, that's cool and everything, but another way to do it that Sean Tucker said he prefers is let's go ahead and drag this in the trash and try again. He said to desaturate the color. Saturation means this, like it is hyper colorized, like you just took paint tubes of bright orange, bright turquoise, and you just squirted them out on the photo. Like pure saturation is like 100% color amped up. Desaturation means you take all, like Sean Tucker said, just suck all the color out of it. So if you click on saturation and you can toggle the sliders, look at what happens when I take out the color. I desaturated it. All right, and on that note, you can also play around with hue, which as you know means color. And like, look at that, you guys. If you want some really wild effects for future projects, you can always really make surrealistic photos because you're changing the hues to different variants. But I'm going to reset it back to 0. And also lightness and darkness, where if a photo is kind of blown out, you can kind of pull it back a little bit and vice versa. But I'm going to set it to 0 because the photo is pretty perfect the way it is. It's a nice balance of darks and lights and everything in between. So let's desaturate it. So there is one of our layers right here, right? And you can use the eyeball to click on and off and to see what's going on here. Now click back on the photo to make it active, and let's go look at curves. So if I come down here to my layers and I go to curves, I found out Photopea does not have that same capability that we saw in that one tutorial where we get to see the histogram while we make adjustments. That's in Photoshop only, but that's okay because the curves I found out will work for us. Remember Sean Tucker was saying that there were different areas where on the left are blacks and on the right are our whites, and everything in between is a mid-tone. Well, watch when we play around with the sliders at the intersections of these darks to lights, all right? So here would be slider number 1. I think you can, yep. So this is telling me that these are where all the blacks are. So if I want no black in my photo, look what happens. It turns to white. So you don't want that. That's mud, right? We like the drama. And then the same thing over here. If you left click and drag this point, you're going to take all the white out until it becomes completely black, right? So what an S curve is Sean Tucker said what you're kind of looking for is somewhere in between, like an S curve. So sure, you want to pop up the highlights, but you don't want it blown out where you can't see details. Once you lose the details in the white, then it's too much. But then he said also like pulling the curve. Do you see the difference, you guys? In this is shaped like an S now. And look at the drama. I've got punch. And to show you, look at this. Before, after, before, after, before, after. That's the S curve that he was talking about. All right. Now, you could probably play around with your color channels as well too. And just so you can see where that affects where the color is hiding behind the black and white. You can turn on and off the channels because Photopea is a little bit different than, sorry, I'm trying to get back to my layers. Photopea is a little bit different in that I can't right at this moment within this panel manipulate, oh, yes, I can. Look at this. Okay, so we just manipulated in curves the blacks and the whites, right? But look at this. When you click down the color channels and the drop downs, here's red. Look at that. You can adjust your reds within the black and white image or underneath it. I'm not going to play around too much because I really like the way the image, but you know, looks now, but you can experiment. But what I'm really looking for is, again, if I can see in your curves in your file, you're going to send me in your shadow project, you're going to send me both the PSD and the JPEG, and the PSD has all the information. And if you don't have these layers in it, it's going to be an issue. But anyways, so that tutorial is how to take a color photo, which is packed with information, and how to bring it into Photopea and use something alternative to just turning it to black and white. We desaturated it in our tool called adjustment layer. We clicked on it, we chose hue saturation, and we made sure we desaturated the photo. And then we clicked back on and made active the photo, and we re-selected curves. And then within the black and white, we made an S curve to best bring out the photo. And just to see how that looks, let me close this window and let me turn on and off so you can see how much better it is when we played around with the curves and made it punchy. So again, listen very importantly before you close out, change the file name by double clicking on the tab, and it's always last name, first initial, underscore. This one would be for you, shadow number 1, shadow number 2, shadow 3. In my case, this isn't necessarily a shadow, it's a hula girl, so I'm just gonna go put hula girl. Right, but yours is going to be shadow 1, shadow 2, shadow 3, however many versions you want to send to me, but one is due soon. And click OK, and now it's a PSD, so I've got to make sure I save it in my downloads by going File, Save as PSD, and it's going to show up in my downloads. Put those in your drive right away. And then again, we need a JPEG. So we go File, Export as JPEG. And that means all of that information over here gets compressed into a viewable file. PSDs cannot be viewed by the average person, only within an app. So we have to save a JPEG, which is viewable on phones and social media. Always try to get the highest quality you can and hit save. And now if Fitchhorn, we're doing the correct thing, she would immediately put these in the drive for the teacher to see. Hint, hint, hint. Immediately put in your shared class drive for me to see. All right, I guess that's it. Kids, thanks so much for being here for this tutorial, and I'll see you tomorrow.